probably been exposed to this recently. It lifted off about 40 years ago. We flew for 9 days, 216 hours. We went to Fra Mauro, and we'll talk about that some more later. But why we did that, we were on the moon for 33 hours, and we did EVAs for 9.5 hours. We actually walked for about 2 miles on the moon, which doesn't sound like very far, but when you're in a backpack and in a stiff suit, it's pretty tough. And we came back with 95 pounds of rocks, and all those numbers are a lot more than what we had done on 11 or 12. And of course, after this, we got the lunar rover, and we did even more. But up to this time, this was about twice as long in EVAs and about 1.5 times as many pounds of rocks as we could get on 12. So it was a pretty big step forward in the process of exploring the moon. Y'all, perhaps we might remind ourselves of what the stack looked like. We're lifting off here on Apollo 14, but we got the escape tower, which we didn't have on very long. It went away after we didn't need it more than about a minute into the flight. But at the top of the stack was a command module where the 3 crew members were flying. Underneath that was a service module, which is where the oxygen and the engine is. And below that is the lunar module. And then comes the booster. So all this is stacked up, and we roar off into space. And the next slide shows us this in a schematic. And I know you can't read these things, don't worry about them. But here's the escape tower. There's the crew sitting in the command module. Here's the big service module with the fuel and the oxygen and the large and the fuel cells that provide power, and the large engine that lets us go into lunar orbit and brings us back. And then under here is the lunar module, which is then fastened onto the adapter and into the booster. The question is, why did we go to Fra Mauro in the first place? And we had planned to go to Fra Mauro when we launched Apollo 13. And the way that whole thing played out was we landed at where we did on Apollo 11 basically because it was easy, flat place. Then the second flight was targeted to go next to the Lunar Surveyor, which was a known position on the moon to verify, to see that you can go and control yourself and land at a place, and you got the skill and the ability to do that, which we did. We landed on 12, and we were right there beside that Lunar Surveyor. I thought that was incredible myself. If you remember the way the EVA suit worked, it was a spacecraft all by itself. We were watching earlier a little thing about Ham going off in a capsule with its own oxygen supply. And of course we have the backpack, which has got the oxygen, the communications, the stuff that you need to really operate on. It includes some cooling water and a system that runs water all around through the underwear. And you think, why do I need to do that? And it's because of this sweat business we were talking about earlier. You generate a lot of water from your body, and you have to get rid of that and cool yourself down. And we had a lot of trouble with the suits when we first started, when we worked on Gemini and went out there. All the suits visors got fogged up because of this, so that was a problem. People say that some say that we really didn't go to the moon. All this was done somewhere in Arizona or New Mexico or someplace like that. And this slide here intrigues me because this is taken with one of these high-resolution satellites later on. And here is a lunar module, and here is the ALSEP. And I don't know if you can see, I can't see it very good from down here, but I think from back there you can see this cow trail where the crew walked back and forth. And to me, down on the Gulf Coast where I live, it doesn't take cows very long to make a path through the pasture. Up here, I'm not quite sure how that works when you're going through the sage and stuff like that. And maybe you don't have cows because there's nothing for them to eat. But in any event, you can see the tracks on the moon. My part in 14, actually, I really did the liftoff. I'm talking about from the ground because of because I had done it on 13. But anyway, and I forgot who did the entry, but I did not do those other phases, and I didn't do the EVA either. So I didn't have those particular phases this time.
Brought back a lot of memories. Going up the gantries, I was in that elevator when it went up with the jump, with Ham.